To find the source of America's wealth and power, we have to look past the history of its politics and military. The real engine of its dominance lies in the physical architecture of the continent itself, a specific set of geographic assets that made its rise a structural likelihood. Look at the global map. The United States is bordered by two massive oceans, placing thousands of miles between it and the world's other great powers. For over 2 centuries, those massive bodies of water acted as natural moats, insulating the country from the constant territorial wars that drained the resources of European and Asian nations. But that insulation came with a major catch. Early settlers were practically pinned against the Atlantic. They had security from external threats, but they were trapped on a narrow strip of coastal land, blocked from the interior of the continent. This is what stood in their way. A towering, dense wall of stone and forest stretching from Georgia all the way up to Maine. Time for a quick pop quiz. What is the name of the massive mountain range that blocked early Americans from moving west? I'll give you a hint. It starts with an A. Drop your guess in the comments. Dragging wagons, livestock, and supplies over these severe elevations was physically exhausting and logistically complex. The rugged terrain forced colonists to concentrate along the coastline, which limited access to new resources and threatened to slow early economic growth. Without a viable way to move large populations and heavy freight through those peaks, the United States was at risk of remaining a small, economically constrained coastal nation. The solution to the mountain trap was a civil engineering breakthrough completed in 1825, the Erie Canal. By cutting a 363-mile trench through New York, engineers finally linked the Atlantic seaboard directly to the Great Lakes. The economic impact was immediate. In just the first few months after opening, the canal drove an additional $6 million in gross business into New York City. The massive influx of grain and farm produce quickly turned the city into the nation's chief business and financial center. Which brings us to our second quiz question. What is the name of that man-made waterway that connected the Great Lakes to the Atlantic? And while you're down in the comments, let me know what city you're currently watching this video from. Crossing the mountains provided access to the massive Mississippi River Basin. This net waterways than any other river basin in the world. To understand why this is so valuable, you have to look at the math of freight. Floating bulk goods down a river requires almost zero friction, making it roughly 10 to 30 times cheaper than moving those same goods over land by truck or rail. For context, a single river tow pushing 15 barges carries the exact same cargo capacity as over 1,000 semi-trucks, burning a fraction of the fuel and requiring far less labor. Because the terrain provided this vast, free superhighway, early farmers and manufacturers didn't have to build expensive roads to reach their markets. They slashed their transportation costs and poured the savings straight back into their businesses, triggering massive capital accumulation across the interior. That internal wealth compound was amplified by the soil itself. The American Midwest forms the largest contiguous stretch of farmable land anywhere on Earth. Here is your third pop quiz. What is the longest navigable river in the United States? Look closely at this map showing the upper Mississippi Basin. The blue squares represent the agricultural counties. The true power of the American interior is this overlap. Nearly all of this highly productive farmland sits directly next to the red line of a navigable river. That proximity means the U.S. can harvest tens of millions of acres of grain, corn, and soybeans, load it directly onto barges, and cheaply export it to global markets. The geography essentially subsidizes the food supply. That leads to our fourth quiz question. What region of the U.S. is known as America's breadbasket? To run an agricultural machine of that scale requires massive energy resources. Fortunately, the same geography that provided the soil and the water also sat on top of vast timber, coal, and oil reserves, providing the fuel necessary to power the tractors and steamships. With food and transportation costs kept low by the landscape itself, American businesses were free to reinvest billions of dollars of surplus capital into new technologies and manufacturing. The combination of fertile soil, abundant energy, and thousands of miles of free water transport created a rare geographic synergy. The landscape functioned as a natural engine of capital generation. Once that internal wealth is generated, there is one final step in the American economic machine: getting all those goods out of the continent and into the hands of international buyers.
the potential for trade along these coasts is unusually vast. For example, the Chesapeake Bay alone contains more prime port property than the entire continental coast of Asia, while a single state like Texas houses 13 world-class deepwater ports. These natural harbors give the U.S. more port capacity than almost any other country on Earth. Time for the final pop quiz. What ocean borders the U.S. East Coast? Most nations rely on just one or two major ports, making them vulnerable to blockades. America has a string of naturally protected harbors on both its Atlantic and Pacific coastlines, allowing massive trade volumes to flow through strategic hubs like New York, Los Angeles, and Charleston. Add it all up and you get a self-sustaining continental fortress. It grows its own food surplus, extracts its own energy to harvest it, floats it down a network of river freeways, and ships it out through world-class ports. Policies change and governments rise and fall, but deepwater ports, navigable rivers, and rich soil do not expire. They represent a permanent advantage built into the land long before the country even existed. If this breakdown changed how you look at the map, share the video with someone else. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to help us beat the algorithm, and click the link on screen to uncover more of the world's hidden geographic secrets.